back, everybody, to build an R2D2. I am your host, Ari Stone, also known as the Mad Scientist, as you can see here. This video is part 2 in our series of how to skin your R2D2. The first video covered how to cut styrene, and that was it. This video is going to cover laying out the styrene skins with the pattern on R2D2. I drew mine out by hand. You can print yours out and paste it on there, but I chose to do mine this way. And this way you can see what needs to get cut out and what needs to stay onto the skins. What we have here is our top skins. This right here is the very top layer, and this right here is the bottom. This also known as the inner skin and the outer skin. So on our inner skin, which is right here, as you can see, there's not a lot of stuff on it because we take the outer skin and we stick it over right like this. While we do this, you can see it's going to leave certain gaps in places, like right here and over here, as well as right here. All of this is intentional, but of course there's also places where you might not see any gaps, such as right here, and there's a reason for this. When we lay these over just like this, you're going to take some of your pieces and fill those in. That way it completes the skin, and this is what it'll look like. Alright, so for example, we have this piece which I labeled right here because I know it goes right here. This is what our skins are going to look like once you have some of the panels put in, just like that. Here's another one. So some of these don't get filled in, like this right here. This is going to be where our shoulder hub goes. This is our side vent area. This right here is where a flat panel goes. Here's another vent. Here's a coin return. These are going to be our coin slots right here. Our vents, our arms, our data port goes right up here. This right here is going to be the power coupler. Over here we're going to have our octagon port. This is the other side of the flat portion, the other side of the vent, and this is the other side for our shoulder hubs. Same thing over here. This is going to be our inner and outer skins for the back. There's not a lot to cut out for the back, as you can see, so it makes it a little bit easier. And if you want, you can even add an access panel. As you can see, I've laid it out here. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do that yet, though. So as mentioned in our previous video, this is our 8x4 sheet of styrene. It's glossy on one side and flat on the other. I don't know if it matters which side you use. We're going to chop this up into 4 pieces that are long enough to make our inner and outer skins on both sides. So here's the ruler that I've got. I've got it marked for the height of how long our skins are actually supposed to be in height. We're going to clamp that and we're going to place lines in each spot so I know where each panel is going to go based on the plans of the flat plans and the rolled plans. So this is my little digital caliper that I've got, and I'm just using this to set one of the first marks. I'll show you how I do that. Again, I've got my top already marked, and I'm going from the top down because that's how the plans are. I've got a point or a 1.181 here, and as you can see, I've labeled each one of these so I know where each panel is to go based on the plans that I just mentioned. We're going to do that for the front skins and the back skins. You see I have an 8 there. The reason I did that is I shifted it over for the back because they're all labeled all in a row. I used the factory edge of the styrene and put a straight edge ruler on there. That way it stays in one spot when I make all my markings. And you can use any kind of right angle. That way you can go up and down the whole plan, make sure all your lines are where they're supposed to be. That layout there is for the back skins, as you can see, based on that design. It looks a little weird, but what I've done is I've gone and marked out each spot that is supposed to be cut out. The reason being is we shift panels in order to cut out the outer skins instead of the inner skins. And I'll show you how we do that in just a second. So we've got all our points marked on this. Just double checking everything. You see right here, that is the very top of the skins. We'll cut that off eventually. What we're going to do is show you first how to lay these out. I use digital calipers to do this, and what I did is I got it to the mark associated with the plans. I converted it to fractions, that way I knew where I need to make the mark. Always check where your marks are with your rulers and according to the plans to make sure everything lines up. So here I'm marking the panels for the upper and lower center vents. This is going to be the inner skin that I'm doing because this is well centered. If I were not doing the inner skins, I would shift everything down with the rest of the panel. That way everything could be cut out easier when I do that. So when you're looking at the plans, at least for the flat plans, anything that's marked in yellow is going to be cut out for the inner skins. Anything that's marked out in red is going to be for the outer skins. So if you remember what I showed you earlier when I showed you my skins, there were portions that were sticking out. Those are going to be for the inner skins. What I'm showing you right now is the outer skins. Here I have my main panel. It's a small little panel in the back. This is the box. And you see another line on the outside of that just barely. This gets cut out and we then shift the panel up. So the panel is, as it appears on the plans, is already in the middle, but we've reconfigured it so it looks like this. We just shifted the panel down by, I believe it's 1/8 of an inch. It takes out 1/16 of an inch all the way around, which makes it 1/8 of an inch. So I have my hot knife. I'm just going to do this freehand. I slowly cut the panel out on the top, bottom, sides, and that cutout portion. And once we're done with that, we're going to break it apart and I'll show you how it fits into the skins. So just take your time with this as you go along the panel line. If you go too fast, you might mess up and you might deviate from that line. And that's what I do here. I also make a couple of passes with this. I don't do it all at once and then try to break it because you might make a mistake. We've got the bottom cut out right here. Here I'm going to cut out the top spot. Just put a line on that. Once we're done with the top, we're going to go to our next section of the top, which is basically cutting out the actual panel itself that you're going to see with the raised detail. Here we'll get our side portions of this with the hot knife. After we're done this side, we'll go to the other side. Once we have this part done, we're going to do that little portion right there as you see. Here I'm going over this one more time. You can barely see the cut lines right here, but as I go over this, you can see they actually become more defined, especially on this bottom right here. It's hard to see. It becomes more defined as I go over that again. I found it helpful to just take the knife and lightly pierce it in each corner, like I'm doing here. You get both sides of it, and this kind of breaks it when it comes time to picking this panel out. As you can see, you just kind of bend it as I showed you in the previous video, and this will slowly break that styrene away to where this panel will eventually pop out like I'm doing here. So just slowly press it and slowly bend it as you feel it breaking away from the rest of the styrene. You're going to get each side of this, and most likely you'll be left with that small little detail that needs to come out. You may have a little difficulty getting it out. As you can see, I am having that difficulty. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to go back over with the hot knife. Here I'm breaking off that small little portion on both sides, and this will be what the panel is. I've labeled it so I know where that goes in the droid. And you see, this is how it'll fit in. Now this, what I have here, so here is our outer skin. What I've got right here, this is just a small little panel, and we're going around this. You see these small little portions right at the top here and all along this bottom side. That's a detail that gets cut out and you never see that again. And what that does is it leaves a gap. So this is where I'm showing you the actual panel that stays. What you want to do is mark parts of the panel that get cut out and that you don't see anymore. That way you know what to keep and what not to keep. Again, this is the center vents, and I've done the same thing on that. It looks a little bit darker on the edge because I know that that gets removed permanently and it doesn't go back. This one was a little bit harder to lay out. You need to pay attention to your drawings and where your lines are going when you do this. If you don't do that, things might not line up properly. And here's one more panel just off to the side. I've laid that out the same way. And any panel that does get cut out on the top skins, they're going to all be laid out like this to make cutting easier as well as removal. So what you see here is the center portion that I'm going to cut out. It's get the center vents on there. I'm just going to go around this. That dark spot that you see, everything that's scribbled is what gets removed and you never see again. So those are going to get filled in with the actual center vents, and that panel will be shifted up on the final product. I have my friction dividers. I like to use these to just slowly etch a line so it breaks these rounded details. There are other tools for that. This is what I had handy. I couldn't find any other tool at the local stores that would do this, but I do know they make them. You just have to be able to find them. This did the job. I did the etching quite a few times, and even on some of them I also went back and did a little bit with the hot knife with the setting not too high. And I slowly did that, and if you work the panels and the plastic and the styrene back and forth, it will slowly break out just how you want it to. And that's what I'm doing here. I already broke that panel out. You saw some that was left over. I just go real slow with this. You don't want to bend it too hard. Imagine doing this if you only had 1/16 of an inch of styrene all around the edges. It would certainly make removal harder, and you'd probably have to use the hot knife a lot more and go all the way through just to remove those. So the thicker it is, the easier it is. Just like I showed you in my previous video, you just slowly bend these portions. It's also okay to, once they're bent, you can flip this over and then you can go around with the hot knife, and as you're going around it, it'll also put bends in that as well, and it makes it a lot easier to remove these panels, especially if you do it from the front and back. So if you do have difficulty removing out any portions, use your knife. This is the front part. You saw I use that knife just to break it a little bit more. I'm going to do the same on the back side. You can see where it's creased from moving it up and down on the front. And once you get this crease marked out, it's going to break off a lot easier as well on the front and the back side. Just give it a little wiggle there, and you see it's slowly starting to come out. You want to be careful because you don't want to break the styrene. Again, I did mention that in my previous video on strictly how to cut styrene. So you see this is slowly breaking away, and the easier it breaks away, the easier it comes out. Eventually you may have to go back and sand some portions, but that's not a big deal. Where you see pieces of table, that's where you're going to see the inner skin. Label your parts, that way you know where they go when you put them in, which is what I've done here. I have no doubt in my mind where each one of these goes. Also, mark the tops of each one, so when you put them in, you know exactly which part is the top. If you measure out properly, you'll have no problems with this. And just to show you, this is a piece here that needs to be sanded down. It's just a scrap piece, but it's easy to show you. You'll see all those burrs on the edges. I just take my knife that I have here and I just kind of go along the edge on both sides. And the more and more you do this, you'll see it flattening out because you don't want to leave any raised portions on those panels when they get laid down. Here's the final product, nice and smooth on both sides. Thanks for watching the video on how to cut the skins for R2D2. If you liked the video and you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. Have a great day.